Welcome to the Breach Ready Dialogues, the show that focuses on all aspects of a cyber attack. We assume that a bad day is coming and we focus on whether we should survive with dignity because we were breach ready or collapse in disarray because we were not. So if you're a CISO, security leader, a policymaker, or a board member, you already know that the rules have changed. It is no longer whether we will be breached or not, but it is when it happens and how fast can we contain it, withstand its effects, and then keep the critical businesses unaffected. On this episode, we will be talking about that exact shift from traditional perimeter heavy defenses to genuine cyber resilience. Not just more tools, but better decisions. And as I keep saying, at the end of the day, when you have a breach, it is all about decisions. It is about what you protect first, how you are architected for failure, and how you explain all of that in simple English to your stakeholders, to your regulators. And my guest today is Tatyana Bolton, who is a policy expert. She's a board member and a public speaker who works on security issues, including security by design, artificial intelligence, and connected devices security, and of course, the cyber workforce. So whether you're listening on your way to the office or heading into a risk committee, or just trying to step one step ahead of the next incident, listen to it. Let's get into it right away. Hi, Tatyana. Welcome to the Breach Ready Dialogues. Why don't we begin with an introduction to yourself and how you react when you hear the news of breaches all around us?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tatyana Bolton, and I am the principal at Monument Advocacy, where I run their cyber practice. I also happen to be the executive director of the Operational Technology Cybersecurity Coalition, and in that hat, I see all of the work that's happening around our ecosystem, around resilience, particularly across critical infrastructure. And so this is a very timely discussion. To your question about what do I think when I see breaches, I think everybody sees the news all the time, and there's a breach that's happening in a cloud environment, or we hear about yet another breach in some state, Michigan or Baltimore, or what have you. So many different sectors and types of companies and organizations, governments are being breached all the time. At this point, I think most people understand that it isn't atypical to get breached. I happen to think that that's unfortunate, that we have become so jaded and sort of accepting of breaches, because I think that we need to get to a better place. I think we need to get to a place where we are more prepared, more resilient, more ready to defend our networks, which is why I think your comments at the beginning about perimeter defenses versus defenses within our networks is so relevant. And so I'm eager to have that conversation with you today.
No, thank you. But as you correctly said, it is, we are living in a world where it's no longer enough to think that perimeters are what need to be emboldened, and you correctly said that it's become commonplace. I mean, I remember when the first LinkedIn breach happened and they lost 150 million identities were lost. It was a huge hue and cry in, when was it, 2022, 2021, somewhere in that period.
Yeah.
Everybody was so bothered about it, including the regulatory authorities. They came down heavily on, I think it was Microsoft. They had acquired LinkedIn by that time. It was a big thing. Today, whenever there is a breach, there's not much that is said about. Nobody's shouting from rooftops, they got breached, they got our personal data. Though in reality, it is affecting our lives. I mean,
Yeah, it needs to really reach a an incredibly high threshold for anyone, especially like the public, to actually care, right? Like the last time that I can remember that the public really, like a breach resonated with the public was probably SolarWinds. Or if we're being like where they really, really cared was like Colonial Pipeline. That was the breach that kind of really struck a chord with Americans because it actually impacted their day-to-day lives. And so, it at this point, it has to be one of the the most significant breaches. But others are happening all the time across schools and hospitals, and those are kind of becoming, like you said, commonplace. People are used to it.
Yeah, and you talked about hospitals. Very recently, in fact, the breach is still going on. Um, there was an attack on hospitals. I think it was Minnesota. University of Minnesota hospitals, and that is affecting people. And you're also right about the fact that most of the attacks that have resonated with people are those which have affected people's lives, their livelihoods, uh, and therefore, and we are seeing more and more of these um, incidents affecting the normal human. I mean our daily lives, right? Um, and for example, deep fakes. People's identities are being lost, they're copied, and then you have all these individual attacks that are reaching out to people. So uh, that's what I'm saying. I mean, uh, the whole um, the whole epicenter of the cyber attacks uh, is no longer going to be only an enterprise, only a hospital. Um, I think it was University of Minnesota who have confirmed that a breach has happened, and it affected their hospital. It affected people's lives. The good news is that in the US, especially, and likewise in many other countries, they have, and I think it's only true to the hospital system, that they have laws that say you just can't shut down if the digital system is not working. You need to offer the care of life through other means. But the fact is that while it is possible to some extent in hospitals, it may not be possible in other industries. Manufacturing, for example, if there was a breach which led to an OT incident, there could be loss of life. I remember that there was this gas pipeline that got damaged some time back, uh, somewhere in Europe, which caused there was a blast, and it was all because someone got into the system and they were able to obfuscate the monitoring of the amount of gas that was going through a pipeline, and
Yep.
and it was blocked, so it sort of blasted and people died. So these are things that are really worth considering. In fact, the University of Medical Center at Minnesota, I think UMMC, or what is it? Let me get some data on that. But I think that's the one that I'm really bothered about now, because they had everything. They were guarding
Yeah.
the doors. They still had the cyber attack, which crippled them. They had to reschedule a lot of,
Surgeries. Yeah.
surgeries. They called in FBI, and I think I saw a media briefing by FBI and the medical director of that hospital.
Yeah. I mean, the hospitals obviously bother me as well. It's a critical lifeline sector. It's one of the top 5 sectors that CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency in the US, is most focused on right now to build resilience around. But I think, it's not the only one. We also saw in Europe not only that incident you mentioned, but also the incident where there were rolling blackouts across Spain and other countries this summer, and that happened. We don't actually know exactly what happened, but that actually brings up another point. So like not only do we have incidents that are happening in schools where students' data is getting either encrypted or stolen, hospitals where they are locking administrators out and ransoming their administrators in order to bring systems back online. Casinos, we've seen hackers go after casinos in order to get money, or states and localities. But the issue is that in many of those situations, one of the issues is that people can't always tell what has happened because they don't have the logs from before the incident turned on in order to do sufficient forensics to figure out whether it was a breach or whether it was something that happened because of, like in the case of Europe, some natural phenomenon that resulted in rolling blackouts. There are assumptions by some that it was caused by a hack, but in most situations, if the organization doesn't know, maybe I shouldn't say most, in some situations when the organization doesn't have the logs, they revert to just saying, "Oh no, it wasn't a cyber attack," because people are concerned. They don't want to think that a cyber attack can turn off the power to an entire country, right? We want to push off, some of these much more significant concerns and much more significant impacts, because humans just aren't set up to accept such bad outcomes. We don't want to hear it. And we see this in water right now as well. There are really significant concerns about the investment in resilience across the water systems across the United States. There's more than 50,000 water utilities around the US, and obviously multiply that by the number of countries that there are. And their size, of course. The U.S. is huge, and so therefore has a lot more of a footprint to protect. But imagine trying to protect 50,000 utilities, right? And that's just one sector. It's very difficult. So that's where kind of my work comes into play. I work at the national level to think through policies that would enhance security across sectors and across sizes of organizations, to create smart policy to encourage organizations, cities, industry to increase their level of security. And so, there's a lot of different things that are working right now. We are thinking about how to structure recommendations and policy around AI and security, how to incorporate AI, but to do it in a responsible manner that acknowledges that AI isn't necessarily fully mature, and putting it on OT systems, for example, right now, should absolutely have very strong guardrails around it. We're also thinking about how to build up resilience and islanding. CISA is working a lot on this right now. It's a project called CI Fortify, where CISA is thinking through, how do you operate systems and networks when that in preparation for an incident, the telecom will go out, you won't have connection to the internet, you won't be able to communicate with anyone in your system, you might not be able to call in the FBI, or in a large scale incident, the FBI might be busy and that they won't be able to have enough resources to help everybody. So how can each individual organization build enough resilience and island themselves and work sort of individually to bring themselves back online to think through how much energy they'll need in order to run their operations. If you're a hospital or a water treatment facility or, a rail hub, right? How much energy do you actually need in order to survive for a few days before support can come? And what else do you need to make that happen? So, we're thinking through all of those things. We're also thinking through what does the Defense Department or the DOW have to defend in terms of critical infrastructure for their mission readiness. So it's a pretty wide range of policies that we're thinking about right now, and it's challenging. It's challenging from any number of levels.
Yeah, and I can agree. It's a mammoth amount of work that you're doing, and I think I heard you say that you talked about earlier about moving from cybersecurity to cyber resilience, and that's given the quantum of work that you're talking about, it's humongous, and the challenges are not only setting policies, the challenges are also executing those policies in a manner that's cost effective, that's valuable to the stakeholders who are there for that particular utility, and so on and so forth. Because adoption of a policy are twofold, right? There is one, a penalty if you don't follow it, and two, there is a incentive if you follow it, and so that makes a lot of difference. And that brings me to another point that you raised, and that was about use of AI. Because what I'm increasingly seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing too, is that there's a whole lot of this AI-based pseudo-intelligence that's floating around. People are under the impression that if they get in some agentic AI guys, they would probably replace the operator in a PLC system somewhere in a factory, and so on and so forth. But in reality, like you said, AI is still full of errors, and hence a human governance is so essential. But the point that I am really thinking that policies should be driving is the focus on remaining unaffected. Because you can invest as much security as you want in tools, but unless you, let's say, build something like a foundational capability that is focused on the ability to face a breach and remain unaffected when the breaches happen. Because the reality is that if you're not prepared, if you've not thought about it, then when the cyber attack happens, like what I read about the hospital, about the Minnesota hospital that has been attacked right now, it could be weeks before they can get back on the rails. But ideally, the messaging should be different. If you've if you've built a policy around remaining unaffected, then when the attack happens, you go around and tell the world, yes, we got attacked, because really you can't stop that. But we've got cyber experts who are looking at the part that has been affected. However, guess what? We're online. We're working. We've not shut down. Our facilities are really available. Though we are affected in a very small part of our organization, cyber experts are looking at it. We've invoked our business continuity plans to take care of how we can run that program. I think that is probably the future of where the world should go, because we need to get to a stage now with whatever Color Tokens is doing, and we are bringing in foundational microsegmentation. I think this is a reality that we can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you take the entire sort of expanse of the of the ecosystem, and you take a look at how wide the attack surface is, it's very difficult to assume that a breach will never happen, right? I mean, I don't think anybody, while they personally may believe that they won't get breached, they will acknowledge at a minimum that certainly someone will get breached, right? So nobody wants to say, oh yeah, I'm, my networks are vulnerable. But I think they acknowledge that in general, the networks are vulnerable. And so I think if we can move to a place where we take that attack surface and we at least reduce it by breaking it down into smaller segments and protecting protecting each of those segments from each other, and at a minimum, protecting the crown jewels of each organization, you significantly reduce that attack surface, right? So just by making sure that it isn't like, for example, the entire pool that gets poisoned, right? Like if you imagine our attack surface as a pool right now where all the water is connected, right? If it can flow, if there's poison in one end, it's not like you can say like the other side is safe. And that's what you see a lot across every network at this point, most networks at this point, right? Hospitals, schools, like running on sometimes outdated equipment, sometimes running things like Windows 95 still. And you'll see that in various critical infrastructure organizations now. They're older, it's harder for them to put in place the newest kind of tools because it just doesn't interoperate. But if you take that pool and you break it down into segments, right? Like you create certain portions that are separated from each other. So if one part gets poisoned, the rest of it is still fine, right? Or if you can create situations where our attack surface is broken out like that, where the water one part of the water doesn't necessarily touch another part of the water, then you have at least portions of your network that are secure. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's kind of like protecting your valuables at home, right, in a locked safe. You might not be able to protect your entire house, but if you know that the most likely place that an attacker is going to go is to go after your jewelry and cash and whatever, like if you have gold in your house or something like that, and you protect it inside of a safe that is impossible to move, then at least you have some security. And I think that in an era where the threats are only increasing from nation state attackers like China and Russia and Iran, especially as we get into, geopolitical tensions with those countries, right? It improves our ability to defend ourselves, or at least our ability to get going again after a breach, right? I am a huge proponent of things like secure by design, where you build the network in such a way, or you code in such a way that you are building resilience immediately into your system. I think the way that we generally built the internet, right, was entirely open. And now a lot of what we're doing is trying to backtrack that and figure out ways that we can create pockets of security where it's, not all one kind of interconnected plane that is really easy to transition. But if you get into one place, you can get into another. Chrome works this way as well. The browser only allows if an attacker were to get in, like Chromebooks, for example, have actually never been ransomwared. But if you take one tab and you have one tab open, the attacker gets into that tab. They can't transfer to the other tab. It's all sandboxed. And so I think expanding that concept across all networks across the US and across the world, we'd create a much more defensible posture.
I think I liked your swimming pool example of getting poisoned and about creating compartments where you can do that. And I wanted to bring up one more topic that you touched upon. You said that it's difficult because you're thinking about the scale, and now you're thinking of what tools do I need to buy. And I think that is where agentless concepts come in, and they're very useful because, as you also said, that there are organizations who have outdated systems. Now, a business decision to remove those outdated systems and buy something new is not easy because it requires extensive amount of investments. But a business decision to create a microsegment and use an agentless appliance and thereby cordoning off that microsegment from the other parts of the organization, make sure that it doesn't get poisoned, to use your language. And that means even if the IT enterprise, some servers they get affected, this will not, and therefore you're going to take care of that part. And on the IT side also, with the EDR integration that we are doing with CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, and with Microsoft Defender, the adoption is very, very quick. I mean, there used to be a time when microsegmentation was assumed to be a 2-year project. Right now, we're doing it in days, because every organization who has an EDR, and I'm sure most organizations have an EDR today. We are in 2026. I mean, we are no longer thinking about, I still am hearing organizations that don't have multi-factor authentication, but they're not many. They're few and far between. But the attackers are actually trying to get in and move very quickly. I was reading about the latest CrowdStrike report, and I think it has dropped down to 30 seconds. Which used to be 78 seconds 2 years ago, has now come down to 30 seconds. That's a very fast time for people to move within your enterprise, because lateral movement was open. So if you are trying to get into that mode of what you just said, creating microsegmentations and zones where you have critical systems that you don't want to get affected if there is a cyber attack, then the best way of looking at it is to create a microsegmentation as a foundational capability and doing it secure by design. I mean, I was at an event and somebody asked me, why do you feel that this is how it needs to be? And I said, look, everyone, when you think of cybersecurity, you ask anybody, they'll give you a diagram, which is more of a network diagram overlaid with cybersecurity tools, saying that this is my security diagram, but that's not really a security diagram. Your security diagram should indicate which part is more secure than others, which is the one that you can really depend on because you've invested in abilities to become ready for the next breach. So which means, I know what you talked about, thinking secure by design. And I think this is a very important consideration to think about, that this is my business. This is how I'm going to design cyber resilience into it and become breach ready, so that tomorrow, if an attacker were to come in, they will face first a problem that they won't have too much of elbow room to move around. Two, they will have the next problem is that they would get detected very fast because they are going to show up as a behavior which is not expected of normal users. And three, once they're detected in the area, in the microsegment where they've attacked, we will have the capabilities to do it at the click of a button and keep them there only.
Yeah, and if we're talking about 38 seconds in which you have to be able to contain a breach, organizations need to acknowledge that that's not a timeline on which any of their SOCs or security personnel can work. No human, barring some, like some magical ability to
not even AI.
One out of every million people maybe would happen to be in the exact right place in the exact right time and staring at their screen and see something pop up and make the analysis or do the analysis and make the decision to block a particular action or an attacker, because so many of these attacks, it's not like it looks so different from regular traffic, from regular network traffic. And so, people like a human, you are going to have to do some looking at the details of this traffic. You're going to have to do some analysis and then make decisions. Many times those organizations also have decision trees where the person who sees it isn't the person who makes the decision to make to block a particular traffic or segment off a particular part of the network. So we have to acknowledge that the only way that you can do this is if you are prepared and you have some kind of functionality to enable
Maybe
the
a
blocking.
modeled playbook.
Exactly. Right. You need to be able to do this without a human in the loop doing it, right? Because this isn't something where, um, you know, you know, AI is making decisions, risk decisions for you, or turning off water or turning off electricity somewhere. It's just the ability to block off particular segments of your network. And so, I think given that the speed of the attack, we have to work in this new reality, and that means we have to be ready before the attack happens, right? And so for me, it makes a lot of sense that organizations are thinking about their risk posture, thinking about, what are my crown jewels? How do I protect them better? How do I make sure that my network isn't just open across the entire network? That if someone can get in, which they often do, right, through phishing or poor or weak security in one part of my network, that it affects the critical pieces and the critical aspects of my system, right? If you're a hospital and you have a lot of people logging into your system, a lot of different credentials, the chances of credential theft are high. And so the ability to protect your record systems or your scheduling systems for surgeries or your machinery that's attached to the network, like MRI machines and CAT scans and everything else, fetal monitors in pediatric wards. If all of those things are on separate and protected systems, then they can keep running even if one part of your IT network has gone down because credential theft happened from one of the nurses or doctors who weren't necessarily thinking about security in their day-to-day life, which quite honestly, we shouldn't expect them to. We shouldn't expect them to be security experts. We should enable networks to be as secure as possible so they can go about their daily lives and do the jobs that they were trained for. And we on the security side have thought through how we can protect those networks without the people in the loop. So, I think we're going to have to get there for all of our critical infrastructure. And I think it starts with risk conversations at the board level. It starts by changing the culture around the way in which we think about security and the investment in security, and just additional conversations about about how we what is standard and what is typical for network security. I think, just like fire doors, right? Now we think of those as standard. They didn't used to be. In Taiwan, I was there a couple of years ago talking to the government about cybersecurity, and I saw the way in which they have now built all their new buildings with elevator shafts that don't go up the entire building. They've offset them to enable fire retardancy across buildings, so an entire building can't go down because an elevator shaft has allowed fire to go across every single floor of the building. We have to think the same exact way about security.
In fact, one of the key points that you raised is about time, and I think, and of the challenge today is you can have AI. You can have AI actually accelerates almost everything that we do, right? But that's where the challenge lies, because there is a decision that needs to be taken because of the number of false positives that land up on a SOC analyst level. So you correctly put it that way. I think what we should do is use AI more effectively to pick up information from around the world. I mean, CISA, for example, has a treasure trove of information about profiles of cyber attackers. MITRE, for example, has a treasure trove of information about attack techniques. If we are able to combine that, and that's what we're trying to bring to the table, we have AI systems that can combine these with the context of the organization, right? You talked about shutting off, let's say, 30,000 water pumps. The digital system has to recognize that this is the context where I need to consider what will happen if an attacker attacks, and then build models and playbooks which can be initiated by that person the moment he's given a trigger that says, okay, if this happens, then click this button. It's as simple as that. If we can get there, I think that would be a great place to be. And
Yeah. Or, I mean, and I think at some point it's going to have to be no one clicking any buttons, that this happens
yes,
automatically, right?
yes,
Where the networks are just segmented and those are always up, allowing only particular types of traffic. I also, another analogy for that is like, I actually think that our Social Security numbers and our ability to open credit should actually be uh, uh, in a closed position as the standard, and open only when you need to use your credit. That creates a system where it's a lot harder for identity theft and for people to open credit cards and other loans on your behalf. I think networks should be in the same kind of closed posture, that you assume only this trusted traffic can go through, and then if you want something else, you have to request additional access. Again, this is, the concept of least privilege that needs to be kind of adopted more widely across all networks and organizations. Just like multi-factor authentication, while everybody understands the concept, the misconfigurations are like the number two reason for breaches, because it often happens that people think that they've configured something for least privilege, least access, but in fact haven't, right? Or have left something open. And we need to get into a posture where this is all done kind of automatically. As AI
and at
becomes
least
more
it gives you an
prevalent, as
alert. At least it gives,
right,
gives you an alert that, look, your SSH is open,
something is happening,
your
right?
RDP is open, and you need to contain that, and give it a decision platform that says, okay, if you click here, it'll get contained, and then you can do that.
Yeah.
And if that is how your artificial intelligence is working, and it is able to, and I think I liked one more thing that you said about identities. If there were mechanisms to determine deviation of behavior of identities, and if there were, and I know there are mechanisms to have identities connected to microsegmentation. So it means if you are not the user who's allowed to go to a certain microsegment, you wouldn't be allowed to go in. And if identities get poisoned, if that information travels to the microsegmentation engine, then immediately that access of a valid user can also be contained.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think again, we're just moving towards a faster implementation and more automatic response to breaches, given that they're so prevalent, and we already know the way that attackers get in. In some ways, it doesn't even really matter if it's a nation state or if it's a criminal actor. They're using similar techniques. And it's, I think we need to get to a point where we are doing a lot more to fail safe rather than fail open. And, I think that's when we will really get to true security.
Okay, I mean, I love talking to you, and I think we're having a great discussion, but I think we're almost done on time. One last question to you, because you are sitting at a place where you're driving changes in policy. How are leaders and policymakers responding to the fact that we need to move away from thinking tooling to thinking becoming breach ready or cyber resilient?
I think particularly in the last year or two, we've moved policymaker thinking towards that type of resilient posture, the resilience conversation. You see that in CISA, right? They're working on this CI Fortify concept that also is happening in Australia. We see conversations about this happening in Europe and in APAC in Singapore. So I really think that there is an understanding among the policymaker community, certainly in the highest levels of leadership, that there are things we can do. I think the challenge is the scale of the problem and the the number of organizations that need to implement these changes. And obviously paired with legacy tech debt, those are some of our biggest problems. But I think it isn't the policymakers. I think I'm seeing a lot of people that really understand what the challenge is, and we're hopefully now rowing all in the same direction.
Thank you, Tatyana. That was great conversation.